Good morning. We're learning as discussed for Shlema Filana Chaya Baserach and Meir Ben Cyril Perel. Zok the mission. Misnadim Adam. Oh, I'm sorry. We're on Kuf Gimel Amid Beis, I believe, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Kuf Gimel Amid Beis by the Mishnah. Misnadim Adam Mincha Shel Shishim Yisarn maybe B'Kli Echad. Person can be Minadav a Mincha of 60 Yisrainim, and he can bring it up to 60 Yisrainim. A freestanding mincha. This is not accompanying a carbon. And you can bring it in one kli. Samach Aleph. If he says I'm bringing a mincha of 61, maybe shishim kli echad ve'echad b'kli echad. He can't go over the maximum. The maximum is 60 isarin in one kli. Once you go to 60, past 60 to 61, you have to do it divided into two separate ones. Shechein, where does this come from? Shechein hatzibur maybe b'yomtov harish shachag shechali is b'shabbos yishem echad. The most that you'll ever have that the tzibur, if you add together all of the musafim and the chayvus, the minchas that are required by the tzibur in one day, it comes out on the first day of Sukkot. That comes out on Shabbos. You have 61. Rashi has the cheshbon. Shechein matzinu Rashi shechein matzinu hatzibur maybe the Yud Gimel Parim. There are 13 parim on the first day of Yom Tov. It keeps decreasing every day, but the first day is the most. That's why we pick the first day of Yom Tov, which is Lamites Esrainim, right? 3 Esrainim for each par. Shloisha Esrainim lapar. V'lo Yudalad Kvasim. There are 14 Kvasim Yudalad Esrainim. That's 14 Esrainim, 1 per each. So you add to the 39. You add 14. That gets you to 53. Harinun Gimel. Uleshnei Elim Dalet Esrainim Harinun Zayin. The Elim each have 2, so you add 4 altogether. That gets you to 57. Uleshnei Tmidim Shnei Shnayim. And to the Shnei Tmidim, each Tamid has 2. That gets you to 59. Musaf to Shabbos Shnayim. That gets you to 61. So that is the first explanation of why the maximum amount of Esrainim is 60, because now the Mishnah says, the yachid, the maximum of a yachid can never be as much as the tzibur does in a day. That's the Tanakama. Arav Shimon. He says, we're going to see a brisa that will repeat this and give more arguments. So he says, first of all, how could you compare the Esrainim that are brought by the tzibur? They're all different categories. You couldn't even mix them together. As we saw before, you can't mix you can't mix minchas that are various viscosities that have different proportions of shemen to flour. And even the Manda Amar who says before that you can't mix even if they're the same. So Ela at Shishim Yechalin Livlo. He says a different pshat. He says the reason is because 60 is the maximum amount that you could mix together. Depends. There's different shitas. One sheet is that we saw before in the Gemara. There are different shitas about whether you only do one loig of shemen, no matter the size of the mincha. So then it makes sense. You can't, once you have more than 60 with a single loig, it's not going to mix in properly. Or you could say even if it's more than that, it's just too physically big to mix. Amrullah, they said back to him, is that really the pshat? Shishin mevlalim v'shisha v'echad ein nevlalim. It goes up to that, up to 60 you could, and 61 you can't. Amrullah called me zecham kain. Yeah, that's tackle the way it works. By abam sahu mut hoytoivel, by abam sahu chatzor kutav ein yachal litvel ben. You see, by like the same thing by a mikveh, right? All of a sudden, the reason why you have the shear of a mikveh, because that's the amount of water that a person can immerse in. So does that mean that up to 40 saw a person can immerse, but more than that he can't? If you're talking about a dwarf, he can do it even in 10 saw. If you're talking about like Melech HaBashan, you need 1,000 saw. So what does it mean? So he said the Chacham make midas. The midas are within a boundary. But if it's more than, if you don't meet that boundary, or if it's more than that boundary, that's it. There's no we don't expand it. So the Gemara, and this Gemara is going to just now repeat essentially the Mishnah with a little bit extra details. Shol she'el lamayla Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai. They asked Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai, Minayin loy harei Ilai shisha ve'echad maybe shisha b'kli echad ve'echad b'kli echad. How do you know this din that we said in the Mishnah? Then if someone says I'm bringing a mincha of 61, he divides it into one of 60 and one of 1. Pasuk Yehuda bar Ilai. Rosh Hamadab b'chol makom. Yehuda bar Ilai was the Rosh Hamadab in every place. V'amar shechem mitzimu tzibur mevi'im b'yom tov harishon shechag shechali is b'Shabbos. Like we find on the first day of Sukkot that comes out on Shabbos. Shisha ve'echad it comes out to 61. Da'il yachad sheyibchas v'nat tzibur echad. And we don't think that the yachad should ever have more than the most of the tzibur. Amalei Rav Shimon said back to him, elu parim ve'elim ve'elu kvasim. How could you say that on the first day of Yom that they bring 61? It's a conglomeration of different types of menachos. Some are parim and elim, are minchas that are both parim and elim, and some are from kvasim. Elu belila avav, elu belilas and raka. Some of them, like we said, have a thicker mixture, more oil, and some have less oil. Some of them are meant the tamid. We included the tamid. The tamid, some of it is supposed to be brought in the morning. Some of them is being brought at night. So how can you say we look at how much is brought over the course of the whole day when some of them are not able to even be brought at the same time? So therefore, for all these reasons, they can't be mixed with one another. Amulai emaratos. He said back to him, okay, so you say what pshat is. It says all mincha b'lu hashemen and a dry one. So the Torah had already said. The Torah said that it has to be a mincha that's able to be mixed. So this is telling you that over 60 is not able to be mixed, which is just the pasuk that supports what the Mishnah had said. He asked the same question like we asked in the Mishnah. Is it true that we drop off a cliff that after 60 it's not possible to be nivla? That's always the rule. With 40 saw, he is able to be toivel. If he's missing even a tiny bit, the smallest amount, he's not able to be toivel. The Chacham said that a beya is metama tumas eichlin, but if it's missing even a sesame, the size of a sesame seed from a beya, it's not metama tumas eichlin.
I'm sorry, where are we up to?
We are right at Kuf Gimel Amid Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom. And another example, Shloish al Shloisha Metama Midras. We're saying that a beya is a oichel. So less than a beya is not an oichel, even a little bit. And we also said that legabe tumas midras, which is a specific kind of tuma that applies, I think, to a zav, that when a zav reclines on something, is supported by something. So we say the minimum amount of a beged that is considered to be a support is shloisha al shloisha, three fingers by 3 fingers. But if it's missing even one thread, it's not metama tumas midras. This is a very famous rule. What do we care if it's not able to be mixed? But you don't actually have to mix the mincha. You could just put the oil in it and leave it like that, and it's still going to be kosher. Not l'chatchila, but the avid it's kosher. Amar Rav Zera, kol haroy lebila and bila makaves boy. V'chol she'en haroy lebila bila makaves boy. Anything. You've heard this a million times, and now you're getting the source of it. That although it's true that you don't actually have to mix it, but it has to be roy labila. It has to be an amount that's capable of being mixed. So even though if you don't mix it, it's going to be kosher, if it wasn't capable of being mixed, that passes it. Amr Bibi Amr Yeshua ben Levi. Ma'aseh b'par da'achas shel Beis Rebbe. There was a donkey or a mule of Beis Rebbe, Shemesa, that died. B'shir chacham es dama b'revius. They tried to evaluate. They measured its dam to see if it was a revius, to see whether it's going to have a din of nevela that's metama. That means a nevela of a behemoth is metama. The dam, we say, has to have a shira of a revius. The Gemara is saying it has to have a shira of a revius in order to be metama. Like we just once we started talking about Shurim, we're saying this din as well. Masar Yitzchak bar Bisna, hey Rabbi Shua ben Beseira, Adam Nevel Shutar. I always say that Dam Nevelis is altogether tar. So what does it make a difference whether it's a revius or not? It's not going to be betam in any case. Rabbi Shua ben Beseira, Maisa Bahayu Neuchern Urdiyos La Arayas Istaria Shal Melech, that they were killing um, wild animals to feed to the lions in the I guess in the gladiator in the amphitheater of the king, the Goyish king. And the other regalim were immersed in blood up till their knees. And they didn't say they become puzzle Thomas Nevela, even though there was this blood from all these wild animals, all these wild donkeys that was killed. So you see that Dam Nevelus is not Matama. So why were they measuring to see that whether there's a Revius of Dam from the Nevelus? Ishtik. He didn't have a response. Amler of Zek, my time he asked him, why didn't you give an answer? Amle Hechi Hadale. How can I answer him? The Amr of Chanin, this is the list of the klaus that will happen in the Teichacha, that your life will be hanging in balance. That's someone who has to every year buy new tvua. His fields don't produce seed tvua, so he has to buy in the shuk. And you're going to be fearful at night and at day. This is someone not just doesn't he have seed for the following year to plant his grain, but every week he has to buy the bread he needs. He doesn't have a store of wheat to use to feed himself. And you won't trust in the life. That's someone who goes during the week and he buys individual breads. He doesn't even have enough to buy a supply at the beginning week. So this is all his answer. And he said about himself that I'm unfortunately I'm one of these very poor people. And therefore I can't concentrate to answer a question. Very interesting thing that's his answer. He said that I'm too mavulbul. Anias is taking away my yishuv hadas. I should tell all my kids who want to go into Kail, tell them to learn this Gemara and say, you gotta at least have enough food to eat, or you're not gonna be able to learn. My Havi Allah, but what's the answer? We see, he's trying to say you should have answered. What was the answer? We see a raya that we don't hold that dam nevelis is metama tumas dam of nevelis is not metama. So why did he say that they were measuring the dam of the donkey? Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda Marayna de Bei Nesiya Hava. Rav Yehuda was the head of the Bei Nesiya. He was the in charge of their halachic psak. For Urlei Kishmaitz, and he passed like his own shita. The Tanah Rav Yehuda, I'm a shisha dvar mikula beisham mechum beis Hillel dam nevelis beisham metarim beis Hillel metamim. This is a chumrah of Beis Hillel. That Beis Hillel says it's metama, and he passed like Beis Hillel, and that's why he had said that he told them to measure the dam of that donkey, but the normative pshat, the normative shita is that you only have there's no dam nevelis. Dam nevelis is not metama. Aresi Ber Yehuda av keshe timu Beis Hillel le timu ela beravias. Even the Beis Hillel that says it's tamei, they only said you have to have revias. Because that is able to become solidified, congealed, and become a kazayas. Zak the Mishnah. Now I'm going to warn you. I don't know if this is the case by all of you, but I was looking in a art scroll on this blot, and all of the Rashi was incomprehensible. There was some massive mistake in the Rashi, and you could not make out a word of it. So if I quote a Rashi and it doesn't make sense, you'll know you have the same edition that I do. Zak the Mishnah. Ein misnadvin lug shnayim v'chamisha. You cannot be menadiv 2 lugin of yayin or 5, because the lugim the freestanding lugan that a person can be menadiv are dependent on what the rule is for being menadiv a full-fledged a nedava that of yayin and sacham of yayin that goes with a carbon. And you don't have shnayim and chamisha. Avon snaden shloisha va'arba v'shisha. Omishisha ulamayla. You could do 3, 4, and 6, and any number more than 6, as Rashi will explain, because you can put together, if you, as we're going to see, you can do 3 and 3, right? 3 is a acceptable amount, so you can do 3 together with 3, and if 7, you could do 3 together with 4, and 8, you could do 4 and 4, and so on and so forth. Zok Rashi. The amount that you bring for a sheep, for I don't know if it's sheep, it's both sheep and goats, for flocks, so that you bring 3 lugan of yayin. Va'arba la'ayil, the shlisha sahin, that's a third of a hin. Ushisha the chazul par, and 6 is for par. Mishisha l'mayil l'sheva chazul gimel l'nayil l'keves v'dayil l'ayil l'shmayna chazul l'shnei elim tisha chazul l'par v'keves. By combining the acceptable amounts, you can get any amount more than 6. Are your Rashi's readable or not? What do you find? You have no problem with it? It's the same as what I have? Okay, I guess it's just my addition. Ibayalahu. Yesh kval nesachim, ein kval nesachim. What's the din? This din of that we said that you can bring any amount over 6. If you bring, let's see Rashi the way he says, Yesh kval nesachim. Amar harei alai kach v'kach lugan. Mi habi kvad ein yachal akrivim ela hakol biyachad. Ta'avkarve b'karben echad. Does that mean he has to bring it all in one carbon? No, ein kva. V'yachal akrivim ma dechazu ba'api nafshayu. He can then subdivide. If he says, let's say 5, can he take 4 of them and bring them as a nischei lug, as a nesachim, a freestanding nesachim, and bring the rest as a gift, as a eilus nedava, or add it on to something else, or is that not allowed? Hechidami. Where he brought 5. He takes 4 because that's the amount of an aisle, and therefore he can bring a nesachim of 4. And the rest is a nedava. If you say that there has to be that you can't subdivide a nesachim, like karvi, until he adds to it to reach an acceptable amount, meaning he adds 1 more to it to make it 6. He can't bring it. What's the din? Amar Abaye Toshma. Shishel and Dava. We said in the Mishnah, he could bring 6 for an Adava. I'm sorry, that's not what our Mishnah. It is a different Mishnah. This is saying how many different containers, how many different chests they had in the Beis Hamikdash to put Nadavas in. V'amina kineged mi. What were these 6 boxes? What were they for? Kineged Meiser Chatas, for the leftover of a chatas. If someone donated to a chatas, then he was able to buy. They gave $100 to buy a chatas, and he only needed $90 to buy it. Umaiser Asham is the same thing for an Asham. Umaiser Asham Nazir for an Asham Nazir. Umaiser Asham Mitzaira. Umaiser Kinin for a pair of birds. Umaiser for Yeledes, for example, or a Zav. Umaiser Minchas Chayta, and the leftover of a Minchas Chayta, which is a mincha of the Oil of a Yared. So all of these, they had separate boxes where they would put the money that came from them, and they used them to buy in the future Oilus L'Kayetz HaMizbeach. V'im Isa, L'Skin Shefer Achrina Keneged Moisa Nesachim. If we're saying that whenever you give 5, you can bring 4 of them as an Nesachim, and the rest gets brought as an Adava, why don't you have another chest for the Nesachim? No, there's a difference. Those go for Nidus Tzibur. The ones those 6 chests were for Nidavas Tzibur, that they would buy with it a oil of animal and bring it as an oil. That wasn't all the time. Over here, if you have if you have one left over, you could go and put it together with another two and bring a tamid every day. So it was easy to find an opportunity, so it wasn't necessary to put it away. Amarav Toshma. This is the source really for the din that we just said, that you bring from nisachim kafi what the amount would be in a nisachim that are brought together with the carbon. Amarav Toshma Ezrach Malamishim Snabin nisachim. That tells you it can be minadav and esach. It doesn't have to be brought along with the carbon. Makama, shloishes lugin, 3 lugin. Minayin shematzal hoisef yosef. How do we know he could add to it? Talmud Lema Talmud Lema that he could make even more than that. Yachal yivchas. Maybe he can make less than 3. Talmud Lema kacha. So it should be like this and not any less. Ma yosef. How much could be ma'aseh? Ilay ma'arba v'shisha. If you'll say that he could add and make 4 and 6. If you're saying you could add to the 3 and you also have an option to bring 4 and 6. We said that you could bring 3. Obviously, the reason of 3 is because from Ezra, a pasuk, extra pasuk of Ezra is telling you can bring a freestanding carbon equal to what you would bring together with a different carbon, which would be an aisle of shloisha. So once it means you can bring like a regular carbon, the nisachim that come with a carbon. So the same way aisle is 3, the par is 4, is 6. I'm sorry. The keves is 4, and the I'm sorry. No, we said keves is 3, and 4 and 6 is for the aisle and the par. Elav chamisha. Elamai, when it says that he could be ma'aseh, it means he could even bring gushmami no ain't found in nisachim. It's obviously it's telling you could even bring more than the amount, and you'll just separate the 4 and bring that as opposite. Let's say you separated 5. I'm sorry. If you said 5, you could bring 4 keneged ayil, and the extra one you give as a nesachim. Shmamino. The Gemara says einachanami. This is a raya. Amar Ravashi v'anan loitnan hachi. We didn't say like this. Misnadim loik shnayim v'chamisha. Our Mishnah says you can't be menadiv 2 lugin or 5 lugin. Katani chamisha dum yidashnayim. Seems to be saying the chamisha is the same as the shnayim. Mas shnayim doli chazu klal. Just like shnayim, until you add another one is not chazi at all, right? Because you can't subdivide it. Av chamisha nami doli chazu klal. So that seems to indicate that it is yesh klal in the sachem. So no, midisa hakadisa v'hakadisa. It's not necessarily the case. It could be that shnayim means that you could add to it, and chamisha means you could take away from it. They're not the problem with each one can be addressed in different ways. Amar Abaye, intim solema enk falin nasachah. Abaye seems to hold that even though we said shma mino before, this last question has put the issue in doubt again. If you'll say enk falin nasachim, then we understand that. Intim solema yesh falin nasachim. If you'll say that there's yesh kva, and therefore you cannot take part of it and bring it as a carbon, adasar pshitali. Up till 10, I understand. That works out fine. But achar mi bias. I have a question by 11. That means any amount under 10 can be brought by putting 2 carbonas together. But when a person says 11, gavra l'shnei parim kamachav and adam memli lahu lekarvi, and a person, and that we say, assume he didn't have in mind to bring 3 separate ones. So we're going to say until he brings, even he said 11, what he really meant to do is 2 parim, which is 12. Or do you say he actually had in mind 3 separate carbonas? Do you say so, which would be 2 4s and 1 3? Do we say that instead of assuming that he meant the 12, which is 2 parim, which normally you'd assume he doesn't have in mind to do so many different menachos or have his freestanding mincha be compatible with those menachos, or do you say maybe he has in mind taka to bring 11 and it's a conglomeration of three separate karbanos of two elim and one keves. Tzak the Gemara, teku. Tzak the Mishnah. Misnavin yayin ve'ein misnavin sheven. Divrei Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva says, just like we just said, you can bring a freestanding yayin, nischa yayin, but you can't do that with shemen. Reb Tavin I misnavin shemen. Reb Tavin disagrees. He said you can't bring an adava of shemen, of just shemen. Amr Reb Tavin memotzinu b'yayin shu b'chayv b'nadav. Av shemen shu b'chayv b'nadav. Reb Tavin says, but it's very simple. Just like yayin is required to be brought with karbanis, with the oil and the shlamim, and it can be brought on its own. So the shemen is the same thing. Amalei Rebbe Akiva. The yayin that's brought with the carbon is poured. It's not mixed with the silus and the shemen. It's poured on its own onto that corner of the mizbeach and the pipe that goes down underneath. But the shemen is always mixed together with the silus. So just because we find that yayin is brought on its own doesn't mean that shemen could be brought on its own. The Mishnah says another din, unrelated din. Ein shnayim misnavin isaron echad. Two people cannot join together to be midnadiv one isaron of a mincha. Al misnavin oilo shlamim v'oif afilu prei dachas. But legabi karbanis of an animal, they can be joined in. They can make a partnership to bring an oilo or a shlamim or an oif and even a single bird. Amar Rava. Midivrei Shneim Nilmad from both of Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, we see it's not the minchas nesachim b'chol yom. Person has the ability to bring as many minchas nesachim as he wants, right? They're just arguing about the question of whether you could bring shemen, but they both agree that you could bring the mincha that it's coming from. You could bring on its own. So you see that you could bring a minchas nesachim. You could just say, I'm bringing nesachim on every day. So no pshita. Why would I think not? Minchas gali barachmana hani chamisha minchas in tfei loy. I might think that the Torah said that there are, by the minchas nedava, that there are 5 different kinds of minchas you can bring. Minchas silus and minchas machashes and machvas, and then the 2 types of ma'afei tanur, the rikikin and the thicker ones. I forgot what it's called, the chalis. Kamash one hani milibistama. Avalhecha the parish. Even though the Torah said these 5, but where a person says, I want to bring a minchas nesachim, that could be additional on top of it. Eichnai misnavim. We said 2 people cannot be menadiv minchas nesachim, but that's not the case by the animals, the oil and the shlamim and so forth. So my time, what's the reason? The Torah says takrav lashon yachid by a mincha oil and am yaksiv yakrav. It also uses lashon yachid by an oil, and an oil we just said can have a number of shutfim. My time, so why does an oil allowed to have multiple? Because it says oil seichem. Lashon rab and mincha nam yaksiv lemincha seichem. It also says lashon rab by the mincha. Ela mishum dechsiv bon nefesh. Because it says by a mincha the word nefesh, Tanyanani hachi Rabbi Yomer asher Yaakov karbon lechol nidreichem lechol nidvaisechem. You'll bring a carbon for all your nedarim and nedavos. Asher Yakiv Hashem hakol boyim b'shutvas. Leisik kasav ela mincha shenemar nefesh. The only one that's different is the Torah pasuk that says nefesh, because it says nefesh kisakav carbon minchol Hashem soilus yiyah karbonoi. So use the lashon nefesh. That tells you it's only for one person. Amar Yitzchak neiman ishnanis mincha shenemar bon nefesh. Another reason why the Torah says nefesh by a mincha. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, mi darchel lahavi mincha ani. Who brings a mincha? A poor person. Otherwise, he would bring a shlamim with a full, fat calf. I'm going to treat an ani who brings his mincha, his poor mincha, as if he brought his own life. We're going to give it the same respect as the rich person's shlamim. Why are there 5 different varieties of a mincha that you could bring, like we said before? Similar to a melech who his friend made a suda for him. And he knows it's his friend, his childhood friend, but he knows he doesn't have any money. The the Melech tells him, I want, you're gonna make bread, I want you to make a fried bread and a baked bread and we're gonna have a great Suda. So Bershom also gave a lot of varieties to the mincha, so the ani should feel as if his matana is wanted. So let's quickly see the next Mishnah. We'll try to get to the bottom of the Yom. Someone said, Harei alai yisaron. Someone said, I'm bringing an yisaron. Yavi echad. He brings one yisaron. Isaron is singular. So when he said, I'm bringing an isaron, he didn't say how many. That means one. Isroinus, he says, I'm bringing more than one. A lashon rabim, yavi shnaim. He has to bring two. That's the miyat is two. Pirashti v'eni yedea ma pirashti. If he says, I know I was going to give some amount of esroinim as a mincha, but I don't remember what I said. Yavi shishim isaron. He has to bring 60 because it could have been any amount up to 60. So by bringing 60, he was nichla, whatever amount he said. Harei alai mincha. If he said I should bring a mincha, yavi ezu sheyirtza. If he says I'm going to bring a mincha, and he doesn't say anything about how much, he could bring whatever amount he wants. Yavi minchas hasoileth shimuchedesh shebe minchas. Rabbi Yehuda says, however, he has to bring minchas soilus, which is the most prominent or the best of the menachos. The Gemara is going to explain what does it mean miyuchedes. Mincha. What if he said oy min ha mincha? He says I'm going to bring a mincha or some type of mincha. Yavi achas. Then he has to bring. He brings one. Minchos oy min menachos. He says I'm going to bring a mincha or some type. I'm going to bring multiple minchas or different types of minchas. Yavi shtayim. He has to bring two. Pirashti v'ene yedei ezemem pirashti. If he said, I was going to bring one. I already decided if it's going to be a machvas or machashes or mafeitan or soilas, but I don't remember which one he said. Yavi chamishisan. He has to bring all five to satisfy whichever one he actually said. Pirashti mincha shalashroinim ve'ene yedei kama pirashti. This is really the same as the first case of the Mishnah. He said, I gave a certain amount, but I don't remember how much. Yavi shishim isaron. He should bring 60, which is like what we said, the Tanakam in the Mishnah said. Rabbi Omer, Yavi Menachos Shalashroinim Me'echad V'ad Shishim. Rabbi says, since he said, I don't remember how many I said, so you can't do just 60 and include everything in it. But he has to do with one Isaron and one of two Isaronim and one of three Isaronim. He's going to have to buy a lot of flour for these Menachos. He's got to cover all his bases. First thing what? Pshita. Esroinim yavi shtayim. I'm sorry, the first thing we said, Harei alai yisaron yavi echad. He said, Lashon yachad, he has to bring one. What's the chiddush? Esroinim yavi shtayim etzrichalei. He has to tell you the second, and then if he said multiple, then he has to bring two. Hanami pshita. Miyad esroinim shtayim etzrichalei. He wants to tell you that, no, I might say esroinim normally means a person, like when you say few, it means three. Maybe when you say esroinim, it means 3 or 4. So he's telling you the minimum amount is 2. Pirashi v'eni yedei ba pirashti yavi shishim isaron. We said in the beginning of the Mishnah, if he says I specified an amount, but I don't remember how much, he should bring 60. Mantana amar chesed like Rebbe. It's not like Rebbe, because Rebbe said at the end of the Mishnah we had really the same achlekes. The Rebbe amar yavi mincha shel shayim echad v'ad shishim. So Rebbe had said a different teretz. He said you can't just bring up 60. You have to bring every possibility. You can't bring more than what you specified. Even Rebbe could be masking, where he says, I said amount, I pirashti, I was mafarish how many Yisraelim, but I didn't say whether I want them to be as separate separate menachos or as all one. The ma'ashi and b'shisa money. In that case, he could just bring one in each one. Even though, I mean, it's a little hard to understand. So we're gonna, right. So we say we make like a t'nai. The Rashi says that we're gonna treat it as any extra ones besides the one that he brought will be considered to be an extra nedava in addition to what he had done before. Dr. Gemara. Okay, we'll stop over here. Continue with this parak tomorrow, B'ez Hashem.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Good, thank you. Good day.
I'll send a message. There's a slight possibility I'll travel today back to Lakewood to be Mevakar Chayla. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay.
Coach, have a good day.
Bye bye.